They pass laws that stop things, and then they dig into your pocket to subsidize those same things. It makes you reliant on them. It puts them at the center of all power, in charge of your life. And that is their mission. That is their goal.
What is that I'm feeling? Is that hope? I haven't felt that in a really long time. We are so back, baby. Pierre Poilievre absolutely obliterated the Liberals in his speech at Stampede, and this is going to warm your soul. Also, I've seen some conservatives online falling for this. And we're going to talk about that because this is exactly what a psychological operation known as a PSYOP looks like. And it's something that a lot of fascist, dictator, authoritarian governments tend to do to their people. So we're going to break that down. I'm Jasmine Lane. Subscribe, follow, like, comment your thoughts down below. And if there was ever a video that you needed to share with your liberal friends, this video today is the one. We're going to be going through the highlights of Pierre Poilievre's speech, as well as comparing Mark Carney's, and get through some of the other matters being suppressed in the media while we're at it. All that and more coming up today on Over Opinionated. But first, I have to say that I'm actually quite mad at you. Yes, you. I'm actually, you know what? I'm not mad. I'm feeling really disappointed, though. Did you see that? That was Kaleo, which is one of my favorite bands who I have wanted to see live for years. But unfortunately, while they do travel to Canada a lot, they very rarely come to my city. And the last time that they did, I couldn't afford to go. And I would have absolutely flown out to Calgary and gone to Stampede had I known that they were playing. And as frustrated as I feel for my own lack of due diligence, and also you for not telling me, because obviously you should be able to read my mind, there's no way that I am as choked as Mark Carney.
That's not, I was better in Ottawa. There you go. I'm going to do another one. I'm practicing. I got a little cocky there.
Oh, look at how much he hates doing normal people stuff. It's flipping a pancake, whatever it is, what it is. But also, you know, like, tell me you don't cook your own food without telling me. Also, though, it's kind of funny saying I'm better in Ottawa. Buddy, you literally admitted on French television that you don't even buy your own groceries in Ottawa because you're prime minister.
But a careful review of a slow motion replay demonstrated exactly what the problem was. He couldn't figure out whether to put his elbows up or down.
You gonna eat all of those? Can I have one? Yeah. Thanks. Oh, they're nice and warm. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Bro, those cost like $14. What are you doing? Don't steal my mini donut in some weird like power authority figure thing where I feel awkward because there's cameras in front of me to say no, when in reality, I just spent my $14 on this thing of mini donuts that, yes, I plan on eating, which is why I bought them.
I would expect to pay more taxes than I would in the States because I think we've got a better country. You now pay 53.5% of your dollar to government. I don't care what you make. If there is some point where right off the top, the government gets more than you, that's just wrong. Because that 46.5% that I get then on those last dollars, I now go to the store and spend it. I gotta pay tax. Put gas in my vehicle. I pay a tax. Invest it and make some more money on it. I pay tax. If I die and leave it to my kids, they pay tax. So it's not just losing half, it's losing half or slightly more than half immediately, but then they're not done.
And I know this clip has been going viral, but I can't help but point out the fact that the man who claims we have a mandate, we have a strong mandate from Canadians. Ooh, bud, it does not sound like you do.
And Korea, please welcome the Right Honorable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada.
Oh my God, everyone's booing.
You know what was arguably the worst about that, though? And this goes to show you just how much they are all working together to ensure that the Carney Liberal government remains our only government in Canada for as long as possible because, well, they'd be out of jobs if it weren't for them. Was CTV News posting this article where it quotes one It describes in detail Mark Carney's outfit. Bro, your CTV news, it came from the Canadian Press and then was reposted by CTV. What are you doing? This isn't a Vogue article, okay? Just tell us what's up. And they can't even do that either, because then they go and say, the announcer said, woo. I heard woo. No, buddy, you didn't.
This is the place that taught me my values, the values of hard work, freedom, family, values that my wife, Anna, who I'm very honored to have with me here, shares, the values with which we're raising our kids. I grew up in these neighborhoods, walked my dog, ran my dog in Fish Creek Park, delivered the Calgary Sun door to door as my very first job, played hockey in the local arenas. And these values that I've taken from this community and this province have taken me forward. And of course, these are the values of all Albertans. They're the values that Damien Couric has demonstrated in putting his country first. And I'm very excited. Yes, give him one more round of applause.
Have you ever noticed how Mark Carney quotes his book Values all the time? Canadian values, 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 blah, 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 blah. And he has yet to actually tell anybody what he believes Canadian values are, outside of that one time when he said Muslim values are Canadian values. I guess that's why there's such a big two-tier justice system, isn't there?
The latest news that the Liberals allowed 17,500 foreign criminals to enter our country by sponging their prior criminal records is just the latest example in the radical, liberal, failed experiment with open borders. And Mark Carney refuses to deport any of these individuals, nor has he changed any of the radical immigration targets that Justin Trudeau left behind.
And if seeing people completely disrespect our country and our values doesn't make you angry enough, get this, the Toronto Star. Jury acquits teen who claimed self-defense in fatal Toronto school, saying that he carried a because his neighborhood was like Iraq, and he was acquitted. He's now 20 years old, testified that he had started carrying when he realized his neighborhood was unsafe like Iraq, where he lived as a child. Well, here's the thing that's just really crazy to me is if somebody from one of those countries flees to Canada and then they go and proceed to buy a certain device, why exactly is it that we just don't have laws like that? Then if you're going to go and acquit somebody for such a crime, and we don't have that here. We don't have conceal carry. That's not a thing in Canada. Not to mention the obvious, which is that in his own testimony, this individual says that he bought this device. It's a YouTube no word. Sorry, I wish I could say it, but I don't want this video to get banned. Because his neighborhood felt unsafe, like Iraq, where he lived as a child. As a child, you're 20 years old now. How's that assimilation going? If your first instinct is to go and do something and buy something that is not at all a common day practice in Canada. Fascinating. And then we have Ron Chinsner, who says, meanwhile, in at least one case, Canadians who defend their families during violent home invasions, some involving YouTube no word, hammers, and masked repeat offenders, are the ones getting charged. This is what a decade of gutless leadership looks like. And this is also what pandering to the aggressors in your society looks like, because let's be real, I'm very much willing to bet that this guy did not get this item because it was so much like Iraq. That's why I had to do it for my self-defense. Even though we don't do that in Canada, it's actually illegal to do that. But I did it because it's just like Iraq. No, you didn't. I think you're using that 100,000% because you know that the courts in Canada are going to side with you because reverse racism is absolutely alive and well. And it's just called racism, by the way. And that's why in the eyes of the law in this country, the only people who ever actually get charged with anything are white people. And police tend to just kind of stand around and watch because they're scared to do anything if it's any other group. I know this from firsthand experience in interviewing police officers over the years. In my province, at the very least, I imagine it runs deep, and it is in every province because that is how freaking woke Canada has become.
Froze people's
You can't make
bank
honking your
assets.
horns illegal.
Bro, they froze people's bank accounts that donated money to the convoy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
And what's so
Peaceful protest, which everybody's supposed to be all about.
right?
These people that were protesting COVID vaccine mandates and
Right.
the lockdowns, and they went after the people that donated, which is crazy.
Yeah.
That makes people self-censor. And that's the terrifying aspect of that. And that's the thing that people won't say it's not that big of a deal. They gave them their bank accounts back eventually. Look, that's sending a very...
Eventually. What does
Yeah.
that even mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
It's sending a very clear message that they can with you in ways that you probably hadn't thought about before.
And on that note, this is actually something that I've spoken about at length with a number of MPs, as well as Pierre Poilievre himself on several occasions. And I was really, really happy to hear him driving this point home.
We will fight against C11, the censorship law, and the Online Harms Act so that Canadians can decide what they see and say on the internet. We will not let the government open your mail without a warrant. That's not how it works in a free country.
And speaking of a free country, I decided to do a little test and I ran Mark Carney's social media because if you happen to follow him, first and foremost, I am so sorry. But secondly, you will see that there is some very particular language that he uses in every single post. It's not very prime ministerial of him. It's not very relatable. It's very odd. It's very scripted. So I ran his social media account through ChatGPT. And here's what it told me. The repetition of crisis language, divided world, dangerous times is often used to justify top-down action, usually without democratic oversight. It lays the emotional groundwork for Canadians to accept erosion of sovereignty or expanded surveillance and censorship, all in the name of safety or stability. And of course, these are things that I've been saying on this channel for many months now. But it goes on to say Carney isn't talking like a prime minister. He's talking like a globalist spokesperson with a script. He isn't asking Canadians what they want. He's telling them what has already been decided. Now, is it leadership or is it narrative control? Carney's posts don't speak to Canadians. They speak for institutions, global alliances, and corporate partners. There's almost no direct engagement with the lived realities of Canadian citizens: housing, affordability, energy, civil liberties, or even national identity. It's like he's the CEO of Canada Incorporated, not a prime minister elected to serve citizens. What's missing? No mention of freedom, no focus on Canadian values or culture. He uses those words a lot, but there's not any substance to them, is there? Whereas Pierre Poilievre has no problem at all providing substance to those words, right? No acknowledgement of public dissent or democratic debate.
At a time of challenging global dynamics, our country is choosing to rise to the challenge. We are choosing to strengthen our economic sovereignty, assert our strategic independence, and build a future based on our values and ambitions. The time for following others is over. If other countries choose not to lead, Canada will. It's up to us to set the pace, to deal the cards, and pave the way for the solutions and innovations that will power our future. Whether in conventional and clean energy infrastructure, new technologies, or critical minerals, Canada is asserting its position in the world as a nation capable of stepping up to the challenge, taking responsibility to be masters of our own home, creating wealth for families from coast to coast to coast, supporting our allies' energy security and fighting climate change, and trading according to our own interests, not just based on who are our closest customers. We are moving rapidly to secure our rightful place as a conventional and clean energy superpower. Every barrel of responsibly produced Canadian oil and every ton of clean Canadian LNG can displace less clean, riskier energy elsewhere in the world. Our exports can help our allies break dependence on authoritarian regimes and help the world reduce our emissions.
Dare I say it again, Canada is already net zero. CO2 is like 0.04% of the atmosphere. Canada contributes less than 1.5% of that. And what we do contribute ends up being absorbed by our forests anyway. Yikes. And while I may very likely vomit if I have to listen to our government continue to lie and say, we're going to lead. Sure we are. And say, oh, it's the climate. We're leading in the climate sector that every other country has abandoned, that many of the hundreds of banks that Mark Carney swindled, some of whom are suing, into joining the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, have since pulled out because it's a sham. In light of all of that, though, Pierre Poilievre made me feel hope again. For the first time in definitely a few months, at least. Honestly, this is probably one of the best 2-ish minutes I've ever seen from him. It hit every point. It hit everything I have been screaming off the rooftops for months now about what is going on and how disgusting this actually is. So this part right here is an absolute must-watch, must-share.
The reality is, my friends, that Mark Carney and the Liberals are spending irresponsibly and threatening our present generation with high inflation and our future generations with more debt. In fact, it looks like this year's Liberal deficit might be even bigger than the one that Trudeau left behind. The Liberals have gone from the budget will balance itself to there's no budget at all. And this is really building on their ideology. Tax, regulate, subsidize, repeat. Mr. Carney has the same approach as Trudeau on this as well. Liberals block things, and then they subsidize those same things. Think about it. They block pipelines. Then they buy pipelines. They pay local bureaucracies to block home building. Then they create a $25 billion bureaucracy to build homes. They ban independent media from the internet, and then they subsidize other media, supposedly because we have a crisis in news coverage. They pass laws that stop things, and then they dig into your pocket to subsidize those same things. As Ronald Reagan put it, if anything moves, a Liberal will tax it. If it keeps moving, a Liberal will regulate it. And when it stops moving, a Liberal will subsidize it. Now, the commonality and the consistency in all of this is the simple. By blocking you from doing something and then making you ask the government to help you do it, it makes you reliant on them. It puts them at the center of all power, in charge of your life. And that is their mission, that is their goal. Mark Carney wants a full government takeover of our economy. He wants more control over your life, so elites and insiders like him control and profit from everything. We conservatives, by contrast, we believe in freedom. We want you to have the ability to control your own destiny and make your own course. We believe in freedom of enterprise, freedom of speech, thought, religion, expression, and more. We want government that minds its own business and leaves people to be free to decide for themselves.
And I know there's a lot of conservatives out there who are really disappointed. I see all sorts of nasty things online about Pierre Poilievre from people I would have never expected these days, about how the conservatives are done for. They have no support. Oh, Pierre Poilievre blew it. Dare I remind you that the reality is far from. Actually, he flipped 25 Liberal seats. That's insane. The youth vote went conservative. Did Mark Carney still win the election? He sure did. I personally have a very hard time believing that he ever would have run if he didn't know that he was going to win that election. Same way how mysteriously he gets like 86% of the vote across every riding in the Liberal leadership race. It's really particular numbers. And, I would have thought at the very least, well, gosh, at least that means Chrystia Freeland isn't going to be getting reelected because apparently her own community hates her, but then she wins with over 10,000 votes. So, There's a lot to pick apart there, and I'm not going to dig into conspiracy theories of any kind. I'm just telling you what I see, how I'm analyzing it. Is that actually because a whole lot of people voted for him? I don't know. But this new Abacus data poll shows that the Conservatives are actually maintaining very strong support despite what all of the flashy headlines want you to think, that I see people resharing all the time. The Liberals are at 41% and the Conservatives are at 40% right now. So do what you will with polls. I don't tend to really base a whole lot off of them, especially when it comes to politics. But at the very least, I think we can all objectively agree that the media and people on the left really, really want to take down Pierre Poilievre in particular as conservative leader. Really bad. And why do they want to do that? Why do they want to manipulate things to take him down? Why? Why do they care so much? If he isn't a threat, why do they care so much? And even broader than that, if conservatism, if conserving your values, which we can define, isn't a threat to the evil that they have brewing in their cauldron, why do they care so much to silence and censor and shut down and insult? Why do they care if it's not a threat to what they have going on behind closed doors?
You bring in all these different groups and extremist ideas, you all bring them into one spot and they start getting rowdy and they start talking, they start threatening people. Then that's what they're hoping for. That's right. Is that the YouTubers, the media get on top and get on their soapbox saying, we need more laws to suppress freedom of speech. And there's like, bing, bing, that's exactly what we wanted. And that is what we will likely see, and that's what we have to push back. Be very cautious in how we present these ideas and present and talk about them so that we don't give them that opportunity to bring those types of laws in.
I will say as well, I think it's rather foolish to be of the mind that we need more laws in order to protect people. Ideally, we need people to enforce the laws that we currently have. That would be nice. And in terms of, free speech and censorship, there is in no world, and maybe this is more of a moral issue with myself, but there is in no world somewhere where I am comfortable knowing, and I'm not comfortable knowing that this is our reality right now, where a government body, especially one I did not vote for, is in control of what we see, what we hear, and simultaneously or subconsciously through that, what we believe, what we think, what we know. And I would say if there's anything I've learned from being in this space online now versus being in mainstream, it is truly how many people do not know and how much that propaganda, because that is exactly what it is by definition, how much that spreads because people think it's truth. And when you have bills like C11 and C18, which manipulate algorithms, most Canadians don't know that. They manipulate the things that you see, and if you want to test it out, go do a Google search of any online, just go with Google and type in any news headline and tell me on the first 5 pages, what are the article sources? You're going to see CTV, CBC, Global. You're going to see CNN, MSNBC from the States. You will not find an opposing view. You will not find something that shows outside of what the government narrative and messaging is, typically until about between pages 3 to 5, depending on the story, you will. And algorithms don't work like that, by the way. So you will have stories that are actually doing far worse than the center or right-leaning stories, and they are nowhere on that Google search. And then you have, Stephen Guilbeault and the Liberal government bragging so much about Google wanted to pay us $100 million to support Canadian journalists. That is a lie. That is an absolute lie, and I know that for a fact because I was one of them when that legislation was passed. And so it is a very deeply concerning thing, but I also like to give people credit, and I believe that every single one of us, our ancestors have survived so many insane things in order to get us here today, and the government thinks that we don't know what's true and what's not anymore, that given time, we won't be able to figure things out on our own, and that they have to be the ones who tell us what is true and what is not. And I completely reject that notion, and I think it is disgusting that parliamentarians support it under the guise of protecting us and our safety.
Yeah. I'm Jasmine Lane. Like, share, subscribe, comment your thoughts down below. You can also give us a follow. By us, I mean me, on other social media platforms as well. And I will talk to you tomorrow.